So we're going to tune in with our opening ISHTA invocation mantra. While you're all still learning it, I'm going to say the first line and then you repeat it back to me. So that's how we'll start to learn it. All right. So I'll call out the first line, listen to the words, and then repeat it back to me. So placing the hands together into prayer position, rubbing the palms, and then nestling the thumbs in towards the heart. And this opening ISHTA invocation is used to tap ourselves into our higher self, to Guru Dev, to the divine teacher within, in the form of bliss and consciousness. So here we go. I will recite the first line. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave. Repeat. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave. Sat Chit Ananda Murtaye. Sat Chit Ananda Murtaye. Nishprapanchaya Shantaya. Nishprapanchaya Shantaya. Niralambaya Tejase. Niralambaya Tejase. And one deep breath in, and we'll Om one time together. Om. Good. May the Great Spirit, God, the Divine Ones illuminate our path and open our minds and our intellects, our hearts and our awarenesses, that we may be guided forward in our learning and our growing along the path of yoga. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. All right, slowly opening the eyes when you are ready. So, always lovely to tune in together. It's like the most grounding and anchoring thing ever. Just mantra really brings us into the moment. It's so special. All right, so we experienced diving into theme 1 over the past 2 weeks, and Leah is just hopping onto the course, so she's going to catch up with theme 1 now and theme 2. Double time, Leah, pajama parties and late night cue card sessions for you.
Oh, Red Bull by the liter.
No Red Bull.
No
it's
Red
going
Bull.
to keep you so enthralled.
Yes,
oh, exactly. I won't need it.
So this past 2 weeks, the theme was around yogic history and yogic philosophy. What is yoga? Where does yoga come from? The development of yoga historically, and also kind of a little bit as to why we have the practice of yoga in the form that we have it today. For those of you who are starting in Module 1, Module 1 is definitely, out of all of the modules, the most theory intensive, all right? And there's a reason for that. I like you to have a firm foundation in the theory before you start getting to the more practical aspects, and then eventually to the teaching aspect. So this is how the ISHTA training has always been done. And I remember myself in my own teacher training going, oh my goodness, when am I actually going to learn to teach? You know, when is this coming? I'm on a teacher training, but if we don't have the vocabulary, if we don't have the understanding, if we don't have the language, then we're not feeling confident as a teacher. We need to integrate where we are and the tradition that we're practicing first. Later comes the teaching. And that's actually the easy part, right? That comes naturally just through practice and time. So be patient with yourself and just enjoy at this moment diving into the theory and learning all about these exciting topics. And then put it in the back of the notice board of your mind that we will get to that. Okay, so don't worry about it, just enjoy it. So now, those of you who dived into theme 1 this week, what would you like to, let's have a little summary. So who can remember anything about what does the word yoga mean, the actual word itself? Anyone going to venture a guess? The word yoga itself, what does it mean?
Yoga means union.
Wonderful, Shayla, very nice. Union. And union of what? With what?
The mind and the body and the soul.
Yes, very nice. Mind, body, and soul. All right. We must, when we use these terms, I'm putting little notes in the chat here for you guys, just as we chat. We must first understand what does it actually mean. We use the words mind, body, and soul a lot now. Mind, body, and spirit, kind of like a term that's thrown around in the so-called spiritual, world. Mind, body, and spirit. But we actually really need to understand this. And so understanding the koshas, which you are now starting to get to in themes in module 1, understanding the koshas, the different layers of ourselves as taught by yogic philosophy, starts to create the understanding of what actually is the body, the physical body, and what exactly is mind, what is the mental aspect of ourselves. What is the soul? Okay, and there's other aspects as well. So saying mind, body, and soul is yes, it's completely correct. But we must just start to also put in the back of our mind to ask ourselves the question, what is the physical body? What do we mean when we talk about mind? What do we mean when we talk about soul or spirit? And emotion, is emotion part of the mind? Is it something separate? Is it kind of a meeting point between the body and mind? So from now on, when you start saying things, just like what Shayla said, correct. I also want you to think, why am I saying this? And what does that actually mean? So imagine if one of your students says, okay, union of body, mind, and soul. What is the mind? Okay. Then in this current upcoming theme 2, you're going to understand more of the yogic philosophy of the mind. And then later we look at the soul. So just keep in your awareness that we want to understand what is body, what is mind, and what is soul from the perspective of the yogic philosophy. Remember that these are such broad topics, right? So we could have these discussions forever. But everything we do on this course is based in the yoga philosophy. Who else wants to venture a guess as to the union of what with what? Mind, body, soul? Yes, correct. What else?
Ryan, is it not unifying the lower self with the higher self?
Oh, very nice. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, sure. It's a good question. The lower self as in working with our ego, working with our emotions, connecting to the higher self, the soul.
Very nice, Brendan.
Yeah.
That's lovely. That's very, very nice. So we have this understanding of the lower self, and we must be careful when we speak of this lower self. It's not less than, it's not less important. We have to have a lower self, right? The lower self is our base human instincts. It's our ability to survive, it's our ability to eat, to reproduce, to sleep, to exercise. So this is the lower self, but it doesn't mean lower as less important than. It's just kind of like a schematic diagram. So the lower chakras are responsible for this lower self, which is our survival. We must be able to live and have physically healthy bodies to live. So this is all the lower self. But we cannot just live through the lower self. We cannot just live a life focused on materialism, focused only on the body, focused only on money, focused only on houses, because then we are lacking purpose. We are lacking the essence within all of that, because we know that at one stage we'll all get sick, old, and die. And then what's the point of it all? So the higher self is this spiritual eternal spiritual force, the soul, maybe we can call it. And it is the divine part within us. It is God within us. And so without the higher self, what is the purpose behind the whole physical? So yes, connecting the lower self, the physical, the mundane, to the higher self, the spiritual, very, very important. In fact, it is never disconnected. So this is actually kind of a misnomer in the translation of the word union. We think of the word union as something that was disconnected and now we have to connect it, but it's never disconnected. So yoga is in fact the remembering, the awareness of our constant connection to God, to the divine, to source. All right, it can never be separated, because if it's separated, we cannot exist. So it is a union of the awareness of the link of the lower self and the higher self. It's walking through the world with a purpose, a mission, and some kind of a spiritual connection. Yeah. Otherwise, we all walk around like zombies, feeling depressed and like there's no point to life. So lovely answer, Brendan. Very nice. Would anyone else like to now venture a guess, a little addition to that? Or are you happy with that definition for now?
Happy with that.
Happy with that for now? Okay, good. I'm going to add into this, and it kind of expands on both what Shayla and Brendan were saying. According to the yogic teachings, it is the union, yes, union of the, I'm going to write this here, of the individual soul, what we call the Jiva Atman, okay, the individual, the personal soul. Atman means the soul, okay? The union of the individual soul, Jiva Atman, with the supreme soul, Paramatman. This is God, all right? So people are often quite surprised that we talk about God so much in yoga. And in fact, the most fascinating thing is, whenever you read classical Indian works on yoga, it's all just God. It's God, 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 God. That's all it is. The whole of yoga is God. It's the divine. And then you're like, where's all the headstands and the shoulder stands and the funny breathing techniques? It's all God, God, God. And that's exactly what it is. Everything else is a means to get to that divine connection. It's a means to remember and to feel that divine connection. And we had the most funny example on our India trip this year. One of the ladies said, as she arrived, she said, you know, my husband just sent me a WhatsApp and he said, you know, enjoy your trip in India, but don't forget your God. And, you know, like what a shocking, like, you know, 10 days in India and she's going to come home an atheist worshipping rocks and who knows what. And she was quite taken aback by this. And at the end of the 10 days, we sat down for our closing ceremony and she said, you know what, my husband said, I mustn't forget my God. I have never felt so close to God in 10 days in my entire life, because everything we do in yoga from dawn until dusk is God, 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 God. We wake up in the morning, we breathe, we remember God. We brush our bodies, we honor the creation of this temple. We eat our food, we bless it. We nurture the physical creation. We give thanks at every given moment of the day. When we inhale and we exhale, we dance with the divine. So everything is around God. And so people are quite shocked that there's so much God in yoga, but that's the whole thing. They think of yoga as like, I don't know, esoteric acrobatics. But the acrobatics really is just one small portion of the whole thing. So it is the connection of the individual soul with the supreme soul. But again, it's not that they were ever disconnected. It's the remembering of it. It's the awareness of it, and the direct experience of it. So we can discover a word that maybe might be new for some of you. And the word is self-realization. Okay, you're going to hear this word a lot in yoga. Was it an S or a Z? It just looks different now in caps. The realization, I've lost it. Okay, so it's right. Damn, Americans are interfering with my English now. So self-realization, you'll hear about this a lot. So the journey of yoga is to realize the self, the soul self. So we speak of the self with a capital S, the full extension of ourself. Not just this little human being that's a very blip on the radar, little Ryan, you know, there he is, a moment in time and space. That's the small letter self. But the capital letter self is something bigger than that. So that's our journey with yoga. So it's no small task. And yet, it's also a series of moments. So now, who would like to be brave and venture a little guess as to, or what they can remember about the history, anything that you can about the history of where yoga comes from, any names you remember, anything.
So what I remember is that Patanjali was, we don't know if he was a man or a group of people, but Patanjali was the first person, or group, I don't know, to put down the teachings of yoga into the written form, into the Vedas, right?
Very good. Yes, Shayla, 100%.
Yeah.
Good, gold star. So very nice. Anyone else want to add to that from the videos you watched this week? There was a lot there, so don't be intimidated if it hasn't yet settled in. All right. So somebody mentioned on the WhatsApp group just now, the idea of Shiva Shakti and the sun and the moon energies, this balance of Ha and Ta. So I think the key points that we must remember is that yoga came out of a desire to experience God, and the way that people first understood that was through looking at nature and the world around them and mimicking nature with their bodies, with trying to tune their lives into natural cycles and rhythms. This is how we get Ayurveda. This is where we get all the names of the different postures. It's where we get why we align ourselves to different times of the day and different seasons, because when we align ourselves to the creation, we align ourselves to the creator. And so this is most likely where it's kind of how it formulated and started, but the lectures go into all of that in great detail. To think that the first time the word yoga was mentioned was in a text that's 5,000 years old, the Rig Veda. 5,000 years old, okay? Like we think of Christianity, 2,000 years. Can you think what all's happened in 2,000 years? It's massive, right? So much. Think about what's happened in 100 years, 50 years, or 2 years. Look at the world in 2 years. Now we're trying to predict our minds 2,000 years. And that's just to the origins of Christianity. Now we take a few hundred years before that and we get Buddhism. And then we go back another 3,000 years to where the word yoga was first written in the Rig Veda. And so, like, wow, that's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing that the system is this ancient. And when the word yoga was referred to in the Rig Veda, it was even then termed to be so ancient that they didn't know the origin. So now we start to like really stretch our minds far away. And then Patanjali, this great guy, or maybe a group of scholars using one name, came along and tried to codify the text and said, let's create one system, one path. Because until then, everyone was just out in the jungle trying to figure it out. And everyone was learning directly under one teacher at a time. And so Patanjali gave us what we now know as yoga to this day, that has the 8 limbs, and these 8 limbs kind of help us to walk a path. It's a pathway. And they start with the yamas and the niyamas. So the yamas and the niyamas are saying these are like kind of the 5 do's and the 5 don'ts of yogic philosophy. You know, like you get your 10 commandments over here, but yoga doesn't have any commandments. It kind of has like guidelines and like ethical principles to live by. It doesn't force us to live by them. It says, if you do these things, it will probably make life a lot easier. And there are things that make a lot of sense, like don't lie to yourself or others, don't deceive, you know, live in a clean environment, have clean thoughts, have clean diet, clean words, you know, don't harm, don't create violence in the world. There's enough violence in the world. So minimize harm as much as possible, self-harm, harm to others, animals, etc. So these principles are universalist principles. And I kind of say they're like a shortcut to being a good human being and to stop being shitty. Okay, so it's like a quick access point. Like, don't do these 5 things and you won't be a shitty person. Do these 5 things and you might be a better person. And then people kind of get it. So the yamas and the niyamas are beautiful because we can study them for a long time and have a lot of discussions around them. So these yamas and the niyamas, they're the entry point for all of us who practice yoga. Because if you're not treating your body with respect, if you are robbing yourself or people of time and energy, if you are living from a place of violence to yourself, to others, to the world, then you're kind of not ready for the journey of self-realization, are you? Like if you can't get these basic things down. So I think it's good to go and take the yamas and niyamas that we've looked at in this theme, go and find a beautiful image of them on Google, print them out, paint them, draw them, put them up on your wall, and every day look at them while you're making your cup of tea and go, okay, which one of these am I going to bring into my life today? Okay, so maybe I'm feeling angry at the moment, so I'm going to practice ahimsa, I'm going to practice non-violence. Or maybe, you know, my house is just an absolute mess. So I'm going to practice cleanliness, you know, just like get the clutter out, satya. Or maybe I feel like I need to come clean with something that I made a little white lie about. So I'll practice satyam, truth. Okay, so just these nice little ways of starting to bring, and when we look at them every day, when we actually see them on the wall in front of us while we're making tea or brushing our teeth or when we're meditating, and we can visually see those 10 principles, we can start to embody them more and more and more. So for example, you might be driving in the road and someone cuts you off and you just want to pull a zap sign, get all angry. But can we just practice ahimsa? Can we practice non-violence? Because at the end of the day, the person we are harming is ourselves, no one else. It's your blood pressure going up, not theirs. So nice little practical ways to play with these yamas and niyamas. And then Patanjali says, okay, so now we've got some kind of an ethic to live by, very important. Now, what the yogis did very cleverly is they took the entry point as the body. So the yogis say, before you get into all this mental stuff, before you sit and you meditate, before you try and access the mind and the spiritual realms, let's start with the most basic thing that you have, the body. Even a baby knows how to work with their body. It's the thing that we have access to immediately. So he says, don't even worry about the mind. Don't even worry about spirituality. Start with your body. And we call this asana. We call this physical practice, physical movement. And its purpose is to keep the body healthy, balanced, and strong, and to prepare yourself for the practices of meditation. Because if we don't have any awareness of the body, how can we have any higher awarenesses? So he says, start with the body. And it's very difficult to meditate and to have deep spiritual experiences if the body is pained and sore and diseased. So he says, start with getting the body right. And this is where most yogis feel that yoga is. Most people think that yoga is just the physical acrobatics, and maybe they even venture into the beautiful world of Ayurveda, yogic lifestyle and nutrition, but then they stop there. And that's fine. And some people are meant to be there. That's great. Okay. But it's only one small piece of the puzzle. So when I was training under Marina, I would constantly say, where's all the cool postures? Where's all the poses? Why am I not learning this? And she'd say, yeah, you've got to learn that by going to classes and signing off your log sheet and reading your asana manual and practicing at home. When you come here, you learn yoga. When you're out there, you practice asana. Difference. There's a big difference. So your job is to go and practice asana by yourself. Yes, I have guidelines in this course, go practice this one this week, go practice this one next week. But your job is to go and find and to practice asana. And the number one way to do that is to be able to try and go to physical classes with physical teachers. But some of you don't have access to physical classes and physical teachers, yeah? So don't worry about it. Hop onto YouTube and do classes there if that's the closest accessibility you have. Find teachers you enjoy. Find teachers you don't enjoy and do their classes as well, because that's how we learn. By going, this is actually not really my style. Why is it not my style? Why don't I like it? Or just reading your asana manual and picking 3 or 4 poses and going, okay, I'm gonna practice this cat-cow thing. Okay, step 1, fingers this far apart, shoulders. Step 2, inhale. Step 3, exhale. Okay, and just go through the poses. You don't have to do, 3 hours of physical yoga a day. I would rather you do 3 postures a day and learn those 3 simple poses and really become friends with those poses, than trying to cram it all in your head in one go. Or pick 5 postures a week. 5 poses a week, easy. Choose the ones you like. Start with that. Choose the ones you like. Choose the ones you think are going to be delicious. And then practice those. And in our asana manual, we have so much. We've got joint moving, and we've got body clapping to get the circulation going. And there's lots of different beautiful techniques that you can explore and experiment. But you must make this a hands-on journey. You've got to implement, yeah? Trish, tell us how important that is. Trish has done this teacher training so many times, she knows it.
I've done the teacher training so many times, and I'm going to be back at the end of the year, guys, for those of you on retreat. So the asana practice is so important, and I love the manual, because I find that, I kind of work with my body, and on days that I don't feel energized, I can go with slower movements. On days I feel more energized, I can go with maybe make my own little vinyasa class. But I love the guidance of it. And I sometimes, as Ryan says, just like to just go, you know what, today I just feel like cat-cow, for example. And why not just do cat-cow and meditate and then do more cat-cow, So there's no I don't think there's a formula, right? I think it's so important to be in tune with our bodies, rather than, gyms have taught us to just go for 1 hour on the dot and just work out. So we have no connection with our bodies, minds, and souls, as Shayla says, in a gym class, or going to a gym, because we do in some ways, but we're not really connected. Whereas if we take our manuals, my mat, you probably can't see it, but it's permanently behind me on the floor here. I get up at between 4 and 5 every morning, and I always do my own practice. And sometimes my practice might just be lying on my mat meditating. So it's not necessarily working out, but it's very much in tune with where I am that day. just to connect me to spirit, to my creator, to my body, and to where I am.
Exactly. That's so beautiful, Trish. That's really great. And because we need to get it out of our head that the yogic practice means only postures, we must understand that the yogic practice is, it could be breathing, it could be chanting, it could be praying, it could be meditating, it could be postures, it could be many of these things. But the purpose is that we're doing something that brings us, our soul, a little bit closer to the divine. That brings us a little bit closer. Yes, Shayla.
Sorry. So that would this be similar to the question we asked in our journal work, the questions you asked for our journal? How do I relate to my body? So would that be the same in just understanding how your body's feeling at the time and what you're going through?
Exactly. You know, I mean, just the physical body itself, Shayla, can have a lifetime of secrets. And there were gurus who said to their students, you know, don't even worry about spirituality, don't even worry about the mind, just spend the next 20 years with your body, and then we'll have a conversation. Because just diving into the body awareness teaches us so much about ourselves. What are our limitations? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And can we be okay with not being okay sometimes? Can we find comfort in discomfort? Can we find contentment in restriction and limitation? You know, I've had students who've been with me for 15 years who are now in their 80s, and they started yoga in their 60s, and they're absolutely wonderful, powerful yogis, but now they're starting to feel like, oh, okay, there are limitations now that we didn't have 15 years ago. And can I find peace with that, with the natural process of life? So being in the body awareness is such a wonderful thing, because yoga, like our body, is organic. It should evolve with us over time. And yoga, I always say, yoga is the only sport that's like a fine bottle of wine. It ages with us. It matures with time. All right, Fish.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. So I actually find, because obviously I'm also getting older now, and I also find that my my whole practice has changed so much according to where I am in my life. And maybe it'll change again, and maybe it won't. But I'd rather be okay with that than push my body. I don't want injuries. I said to my one daughter today, you know, I'm at the stage now where I know I'm never going to have the hottest body in the room. So I'm over that. So, you know, I'm just so accepting of where I am in my life, which is so awesome, because it just makes me so at peace with the movement of my body. Like, I don't have to force anything. I just have to be okay with it. But what I did say to my daughter is that I will continue to always practice yoga and continue to do self-care, because no matter what, I want to be healthy. And I think that is a very important part of our yogic practice, right? Don't you think so?
Exactly, because the emphasis is on health. It's not on our idea of the ideal. Exactly what Trish said. Gym culture has given us such a distorted view of what we feel the physical body should look like, should be like. You know, magazine culture, and those are great and they're lovely ideals, but you know, is that person any better off as a human being than they were before? Maybe yes, maybe no. But, you know, the idea of health is very different to the idea of that look, that structure. Many of the people with that structure are far from healthy. So it's really coming to terms with ourselves while always striving towards health. That is it, health of body, but health of mind as well. Mental health, absolutely, if not more important than anything in the whole scheme of this. And to understand, as Shayla says, that we're going to go through different times, different relationships with our body. And can we still find acceptance in that? Can we still find the divine in that? So this journey of the body, who was it? Iyengar, I think, who said, yoga is the journey of the self, through the self, to the self. And it's such a lovely way of thinking about it, because you actually end up falling in love with you. The most wonderful creation is part of this yoga. So as you're studying this course, you're going to be zooming in and zooming out a lot. You're going to be going deep into theory and learning all these big words and fabulous concepts and Sanskrit. And then at the end, you've got to pull out and distill that and go, okay, let me just see the bigger picture. And then you'll zoom in again and then you'll learn more details. And so it's this constant art of zoning into the detail and then zooming out and seeing the bigger picture again. And so this course really is in itself transformative. It's as transformative as you want it to be, as you allow it to be. And you could just study out of your manual and do your assignments, and that's fine. That will satisfy the intellectual part of you, but that's not where the magic is. That's not where the change is going to happen. The change is going to happen by you pulling up the mat and doing the cat-cow and sitting there quietly for 5 minutes and just breathing, or lighting a candle and doing your gratitude work, or whatever it is that you need to do that day, because that's sadhana. The word sadhana, that's your Sanskrit word for the day, is your self-practice. Okay, your spiritual
Right. Can I just say something else about module 1? Because I know module 1 can be so overwhelming. Leah, you're about to get your notes. You're going to look and you go, oh my word, what have I put myself into? So very much like the gym scenario I mentioned, just embrace it. It's not a race. It's not a race, and no one it's not about getting straight A's. It's about actually understanding the concepts and really, really, really just learning and putting them into your life on a daily basis. So my suggestion is, so many people go into module 1 and go, oh, there's so much, and there is a lot of academic work, but just go, I have plenty of time to do it in. This module is perfectly designed, so it is not going to be too much for you. It is perfectly designed to just embrace it. I would suggest doing all the YouTube videos that Ryan's put links to, listening to audio books if you can on any subject that may interest you, that's related to it, and rather do it as a journey than an academic procedure, because you don't want it to overwhelm you. You want to really get joy out of it. You really want to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely, Trish. I love that. And to practice the things that I give you, they're not just thrown in there. Everything that I give you in this course is put there for a reason. So I'm going to just quickly bring up a shared screen on our theme 1, the one that's we've just done the past 2 weeks. If you haven't yet done these things, then I want you to please, while you still have time, dive in, but don't leave it for the end of the module, guys. You're going to feel overwhelmed. Just set aside time. Even 1 day can get you through an entire theme, okay, of the academics, if you need to do it that way. So you should have watched the housekeeping and admin video by now. That's very important because it walks you through everything from assignments to what you need to hand in, when and how, and that satisfies the monkey in the mind. Then we go into a discussion on yoga and the Vedas and Samkhya. This is really the meat and bones of the history and the origin of the philosophy of yoga. Then there's a lecture on yoga and Hatha yoga specifically. Hatha yoga is the yoga that we are studying in our system here. And I also dispel some myths around that, because people think Hatha yoga is granny yoga, but it's not. It's classical. It's classical yoga. Okay, everyone thinks that you've got to be doing vinyasa, but vinyasa is Hatha yoga. Oh my goodness, shock and horror to all of the gyms. Okay, it is Hatha yoga. Then threefold yogic breathing. Now, remember, everything you're doing in this course, you're learning for yourself, but you're also learning how to teach it. Okay, very important. So you're learning it for you, but you're also learning how to teach it to other people. So keep that always in the mind. You must learn how to do threefold yogic breathing. And then you must feel comfortable to teach threefold yogic breathing. Learning to do something and learning to teach something require different parts of the brain. So once you've learned threefold yogic breathing, which is the foundation breathing technique, the base breathing technique of everything, I then want you to go and teach it to somebody. Okay? Haul somebody into the lounge, lie them on their back or sit them in the chair, put the hand on the belly, put the hand on the chest, and teach them how to do threefold yogic breathing. You'll be shocked at how people do not know how to breathe. And you don't realize that until you start teaching people how to breathe. And you go, oh my gosh, we've never been breathing right this whole time. How did we even make it this far? All right, so go and teach people how to breathe. That, if you end right there, you can change the whole world by just teaching people how to breathe correctly. Okay, so please get that under your belt. You must learn how to teach that. If you don't, the other breathing techniques won't even make sense. Then there's a lecture on the 5 great paths of yoga. This is a beautiful lecture because you start to realize that yoga is not just a physical path, but there's also a devotional path, there's a philosophical, there's an action-oriented, there's different paths of yoga as well, and we must understand these. The 8 limbs of yoga. Now, this is where I go into the yamas and the niyamas and the postures and the breath. So this is the foundation of everything. If you don't have the understanding of the 8 limbs, you're going to get lost, all right? You must know this. Draw it on pictures, put it on the wall, make diagrams, use color. Very important. You cannot learn this course just from your Module 1 manual. You have to watch the lectures. Imperative. Then there's a short article on the 5 koshas, and that's it. Okay, that's it for. And of course, then you've got your readings, your journaling, what asana to do, your homeworks and links. So everything here, you must go through it all slowly and check that it's done. If you haven't done it yet, please get this under your belt. Now, for the next 2 weeks, so Leah's going, oh my God, it's like I've got to catch up on this and late nights and no Red Bulls.
I'm looking forward.
Cool, it's going to be delicious. So now, after this, we go into the mind and meditation yoga nidra. So this is for the next 2 weeks. So as usual, you have your readings, your journaling, your asana, homework, and links. Then we go into the brain, the mind, and states of consciousness. This is as taught by yogic philosophy. I bring in my background in neuropsychology into this because the two are so closely linked. Like the yogis knew so much of what our modern scientists are only now starting to click into. But this is a very interesting, it's a short little lecture, 39 minutes, okay? But it really gives us a good understanding. Then an introduction to the practice of Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is guided relaxation and visualization for the purpose of putting the body into a restorative healing state. And it's not meditation. There's a difference between Yoga Nidra and meditation. So this is actually, a lot of people now are really looking for Yoga Nidra. The word is starting to people are starting to know what the word is, and they're actively seeking Yoga Nidra classes because the benefits are so big in our modern society to reset the nervous system. Now, these next bits over here, all right, these next bits from extracts of the Heart of the Yoga Sutras, going down, you'll see in brackets, optional, 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 optional. This means they are optional, all right? don't email me and go, oh my gosh, Ryan, what have you given us this week? You're such a monster. They are optional. These are the lectures that you can come back to if you want to, because they're actually extracted from another course that I have called The Heart of the Yoga Sutras. And this is for people who are really fascinated by this short little bit at the top here. The actually only compulsory part is these 2 lectures. That's all, just these 2. Everything below that is optional. But if you are fascinated by the mind and the brain and the states of consciousness, then please dive into these videos. They are super delicious and very juicy, and I think you're going to enjoy them. All right, but it's optional. And that's it. So it's actually
I would
not
say
that.
dive in. It's a gift from Ryan. I would definitely dive in.
Yeah, dive in, because it was actually, I never had this as part of the course before, but it's so nice. You actually you want to learn more. It's not in your exams, it's not in your assignments. You just want to learn more about it. It's so interesting.
It's awesome.
Because
I would definitely dive into it.
cool. This is like original yoga psychology. If you want to understand the psychology of yoga, this is it. So I think you'll enjoy that. So that's it. That's it actually for this next 2 weeks. It's just up to there, just up to Yoga Nidra. The rest is up to you. Okay. So yeah. Now, are there any questions around this? No. Okay, good. So
sorry. I just wanted to ask quickly, no one here is in Somerset West, are there? Because, you know, we have our Yoga Nidra introduction on Sunday, after your class on Sunday, right?
No, everyone's in different places.
Oh, what a pity. From like an absolute master that studied Yoga Nidra and is just passionate about, he's incredible.
Cool.
But no one will be here.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
Shayla, you were going to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question, but it's relating back to module 3. So if you want to say goodbye to everyone, and then we can quickly chat.
Okay, we'll chat about that afterwards. Cool. Perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you all with a little story that I heard from Lalita Ji at the ashram when I was in India. And it's a cute story, and I think Shayla's already heard it, but it gives us a nice example of why we should practice what we teach. So, because we don't preach, all right? None of us are preachers, we're teachers, there's a difference. So it's a true story, and it's about Mahatma Gandhi. And Gandhi was approached by a woman, an Indian mother. And of course, if you know anything about Indian mothers, they love to make sure that all of their kids are happy and healthy, and like all mothers, right? So she approaches Gandhi and she says, Gandhi ji, I desperately need your help. My son eats a lot of sweets, and I need you to tell him to stop eating sweets. It's not going to be good for him. He's going to become lazy and unhealthy. So Gandhi says to her, Madam, I will absolutely help you with this. Please give me 7 days, and on the 7th day, bring your son. And she thinks, I wonder why he needs that. But okay, it's Mahatma Gandhi. He must have a reason for it. And so she leaves and she thanks him. And 7 days later, she brings her son to Gandhi. She pushes her son there and she says to Gandhi, Gandhi, we've waited 7 days. Do you have anything you want to tell my son? And Gandhi looks at him and goes, young man, you must not eat sweets. They're very bad for you. And she just goes, okay, thank you, Gandhiji. That was great. But why did you need 7 days to tell my son to stop eating sweets? And Gandhi said, well, ma'am, to be honest with you, 7 days ago, I too ate far too many sweets. I absolutely love them. And so for 7 days, I had to figure out how to stop them, because I cannot tell your son how to stop eating sweets if I eat sweets. So it's a very cute story, because Gandhi was insistent that he should only teach what he can do himself. And so this is our whole thing. We must practice what we teach. All right, so there we go, everybody. You know what to do for the next 2 weeks. Let's all close with our peace mantra. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hands together. And take a nice deep breath in and out. We give thanks to the Divine and the Supreme Being for being present with us tonight, for protection and guidance, and to all of those great ones who walk with us, work with us, and guide us, for always keeping our minds, bodies, hearts, and awarenesses open to the light. Everybody take a deep breath in. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you, everybody. Until we see each other again in 2 weeks, stay blessed. Namaste.